talk about goals. This is week 8 of our Back to School Live series, and I want to make sure that we are setting goals with our children that will stick. So, have you ever heard a child say, "Oh, how many of you as a parent tell your children, you need to make straight A's or you need to get better grades?" Well, first of all, there's two things with that. One, you're telling your child what the goal should be. And number two, what does that mean? Like, how do they achieve that goal? So while we wait for people to come in, I want you to think about what is a goal that your child has or that a goal that you want for your child. How have you talked about it or have you talked about it? And how you make sure they achieve that goal. So I'll give us about 30 seconds just to let some people in, and then we'll get right into our week 8 of this back to school Mondays. I'm also going to go ahead and share that this is week 8. We are at the halfway mark of this back to school series. So I have done 7, count it, 7 previous weeks of tips that I have compiled from my 20 years of experience in the classroom to make sure you and your child are having the best back to school ever. And I want to make sure that we are giving them everything they need and everything you need to be successful for them. They're going to have better relationships at school. You'll be able to, and they'll be able to have confidence in the work they're doing. And you will be able to talk to your child, know what's going on, talk to the teacher, understand what's happening in the classroom so that you all can form a partnership for the betterment of your kid. So, again, we've made it to week 8. We've done 2 months, one for one. Month 1 focused on back to school readiness, getting prepared for success. Month 2 focused on relationships. And month 3, we'll talk about that at the end. We'll give you a preview, but we're going to start right now with week 8. So let's jump right in it. Studies show that students or children that set their own goals are 90% more likely to stay motivated. I mean, think about it. As an adult, if someone told you what to do as your goal, would you really be okay with that? No. We become more invested in a goal when it is one we choose, we pick, we outline. Okay. We want to make sure that they choose the goal so that they don't feel overwhelmed and that they understand that it's for them. They feel ownership because they made it. And then they also want to make sure it's not too big or too vague so that they don't give up, because studies show that when it's too big or too vague, give up in 2 weeks. As a parent, as a trusted adult, your job is to assist them in identifying areas they want to improve or to excel in and ways to get to that. So we want to make sure that these goals are specific, doable, and motivating. So as an adult, I know we're talking about SMART goals. SMART is what is it? Short, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. Okay, that's too much for your average child. What we want, even a highly skilled child, they're still children. I want y'all to remember that. What we want to do is make it specific, doable, and motivating. So, for example, let's go back to the all A's. They say you ask your child, "What's your goal for this quarter?" Well, I want to make straight A's. Okay. Well, or I want to make good grades. Well, what does that look like? What does that mean for you? What is something that you can do today, this week, this month to achieve that goal? Okay. Because we want to make sure, yes, straight A's is great. We don't want to put too much stress or pressure on them, but how are we going to get there? It's easy to say, I want to do this, but how are you going to get there? So let's talk about it. We want to start small and be very specific. Instead of saying, I want to get better at reading or get better at math, what are something specific you can do? So if you want to get straight A's and you know you struggle in math, okay, so let's learn your times tables up to 12 by the end of this week. That's specific, measurable. You can practice and go over it, and you will be able to have a time bound. So say I want to get learn my timetables by the end of October. If your child says I want to get better at reading, okay, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Does that mean you're scoring well on your test, or does that mean that you feel comfortable and confident when you open up a book, that you're reading your sight words, or that you are learning vocabulary words for the unit? So, what does that mean? So, maybe you can say, okay, well, if you want to get better at reading, you're going to read for 20 minutes a day, a book or something of your choice. Remember, we talked about let them choose what they want to read. And then you say, okay, well, then you can tell me about what you read. Do a summary, a gist. That is a strategy. Your children should know that. A gist summary. Or maybe you create a vocabulary cards for what you read. Or we just talk about it for 5 minutes afterwards. Those are specifics that you can measure, that you can hold them accountable for, that'll help them reach their goals. So now that we have the goals, we want to make it visible and trackable. So let's create a sheet, a checklist, or something of milestones. Last week we talked about milestones. So maybe if your goal is to improve your reading and your grade in reading, so then we're going to read for 20 minutes a night. And we're going to talk about it for 5 minutes after dinner or whatever. So then you're going to say, okay, well, did you read your 20 minutes today? Okay, yes. So let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. So then, did we talk about it? So, okay, we talked about it. What are some things? How are the characters? What is something you learned? What is a connection you made with the book? So those are the ways you start talking about what they're reading. And I'm gonna tell you this, parents, I want you to actually listen to your child read. Okay. Because I think one of the issues in school is a lot of people haven't actually heard their child read out loud. Okay. So you see them with a book, but do you know what they're actually doing with that book? So if your child is young, granted, they're going to struggle a little bit. Maybe not though. I don't ain't gonna say anything, but maybe they will, maybe they won't. But when you have a child that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and older, 14, 15, ask them to read out loud to you and see what happens. You might be shocked. And that might give you some insight as to what you need to do. And as an educator, I know depending on whether they're reading with expression, how fast they're reading, and whether they're tripping up and correcting their mistakes, that they may need some basic phonics and phonemic awareness remediation. And so we might need to start investigating what programs that are available to help your child with their reading. Some people are stronger in reading, some people are stronger in math. So you need to figure out what their strengths are and what kind of goals you can set to improve their weaknesses. Also, we want to celebrate effort along the way. So that is something that's super important. We talked about that last week. Milestone celebrations are important. We don't want to celebrate or we don't want to hold a carrot over the head. Hey, if you do this, we'll get that. No, but we want to celebrate their progress, celebrate their effort. Maybe their goal was to read 20 minutes a night, but they only got to 10 minutes for 3 or 4 nights. That's still progress because guess what? Last week, they weren't doing any of that. And maybe you don't get to talk to them every time they read. But guess what? If you're having conversations, at least one more or two more per week, that's something to celebrate. Find the joy in helping your child feel successful. And guess what? All of you will have a better outcome. All right. So, what we want to do is set up family routines. Where are you going to have these conversations? What times are we going to do it on the way from home? I mean, from school on the way home? Are we going to do it at dinner time? Or are we just going to set aside some time before bed to have these conversations and reassess the goals? How often are you going to look at the milestones, the weekly trackers that you create? Are you going to look at those once a week, twice a week, or every month? I would suggest once a week because you don't want to get them overwhelmed, but you also want to hold them accountable. And also maybe set a goal for yourself so you both can hold yourself accountable for a goal as a family. That'll be a good one. All right. And finally, I want you to just put in the chat, what is something you're talking about you're working on right now? Do you know what your child wants? Do you know what they want to achieve? Help them, talk to them, have those conversations because you might be surprised at what they're trying to work for. And we want to make sure that we are supporting them inside the classroom as well as out. Okay, so everybody, thank you for being here. You've made it halfway through the series, and I couldn't be excited for what's happened and what's more to come. I cannot do this without you guys. I would really appreciate you sharing this with family and friends, people that you know that are interested in kids in school. There, all of these videos are housed on my YouTube and they are available here in my Raising Confident Kids playlist. Everything is here for you. You can rewatch this anytime you need to for the tips. And if you sign up or subscribe to my email list, which is the link is in, I'll put it in the comments or it's in my Instagram, you will actually get a tip sheet the following day with all the tips that I have. So right now, if you subscribe, tomorrow you will have 24 back to school tips to help make sure your child has the best school year ever and that you as a parent flourish too without getting headaches. So it's really a win-win for all. I have 20 years of experience and I don't want to keep this in my head. I want to make it useful for you, useful for children so that we can build a world of happy, confident readers, kids that love themselves inside and out just the way that they are. So I look forward to seeing you guys in the chat. Tell me what you're working on. Tell me some ways that you encourage your children to set goals. And please share this with family and friends and the links in my profile because together we can build a community of happy learners and happy kids. All right, y'all. Take care. Thank you for being here. Bye. Bye, y'all.